Wall Street is on Washington watch, and the debt ceiling talks are top of mind today. President Biden confirming he will cut his upcoming foreign trip short amid the negotiations. Yahoo Finance's Rick Newman is here with the latest. Rick, take it away.
Well, wasn't that exciting seeing those people in that meeting there? I mean, they're really going to nail this thing down.
Yeah,
we have another meeting. Okay.
Yep.
Meetings are not going to solve the problem. Unfortunately, we're going to have to the analysis that I'm seeing basically says is it's going to take market panic to get this done. And until something like that happens, that could be a sell-off in stocks. It could be the bond market going haywire, something like that. I mean, look at the 2011 playbook. That's the template for how this can go seriously off the rails. And the analysis I'm seeing is basically saying until the markets start to say now is the time to get this done, there's just not going to be an incentive to get this deal done. So this is a very weird moment in markets. It's kind of like everybody.
Well, they think it's going to get done.
Everybody mostly thinks there will be a deal at the end of the day, and this will go away because that's what has always happened before. And yet, in order to get the deal, we have to get the type of market dislocation you would get if things don't work out. So, we are starting to see, it's not showing up in the stock market yet, I don't think, or in the investments most people pay attention to. We are starting to see some dislocations in short-term treasuries. And those, the type of debt that would actually be coming due in the window where we're going to be dealing with this problem, which is, say, over the next 3 months. So that could get a little more bubbly. And it's going to take the politicians in Washington getting a signal from the market that says, guys, this really matters. Can you get the job done here?
Well, I mean, yeah, Rick, that begs the question, what is that? I don't want to use the word panic. You never want to see the markets panic. But what does that look like? If it's going to take some kind of reaction from the markets for lawmakers to step in, you could argue that, look, if you're an investor, you've seen this story before. So there's a bit of complacency in there. What are lawmakers looking for?
Look, this is a political game. This they're framing this as we've got to do something about spending, but they never do anything about spending or about tax cuts that bring in less revenue. They never do anything about that. That's the underlying problem. All they ever do is act like it matters, on these arbitrary deadlines when it comes around every year and a half or whatever that we have to raise the federal borrowing limit. So again, Akiko, the template here is 2011, and we came within like 24 hours of defaulting on some federal payments back then. And here's what we saw in the stock market. In the month leading up to that, the S&P 500 dropped by about 15%. That's what we're talking about here, the type of thing that will get their attention in Washington. And then when we had this is another thing I've written about recently, is what if we had another downgrade of the U.S. credit rating? In 2011, that happened. That actually happened about 4 days after they raised the borrowing limit. But Standard & Poor's said, basically, this was so ridiculous and dysfunctional that we think this political dysfunction actually affects the creditworthiness of the United States. And on that day alone, the first trading day after the credit rating, the S&P 500 fell 6.5% in 1 day. So that is the kind of stuff that gets Washington's attention. Also, for anybody who wants to go deep in the weeds on this, go back and look at the TARP legislation, the bank bailout legislation from 2008.
Oh my gosh, I remember that. That's taking it back.
People may not remember this, but Congress voted down the bank bailout legislation the first time around. And if my memory is correct, that was a 7% down day in the S&P 500.
I don't remember the percentage, but I do remember how
that's what actually
effect.
got them around to passing TARP on the second try. So that's what we're talking about here. And before we get to that point, the meetings, there are positive signs, negative signs. This is not going to come together until the very last second.
I mean, Rick, you talk about the risk of a downgrade. We've seen a number of executives already flag that to say we don't have to go up to that X date in order for this to have significant impact on the U.S. as a whole. We talk about this in the context of the markets, but obviously there's a political calculation. In the context of what's about to play out next year, last week you said you had the clock running, 18 months is what we have. What is the calculation on both ends? And to what extent does this even matter from a voter standpoint?
I remain a bit mystified about why the Republicans do this over and over again. I mean, every time. So we have individual members of Congress, the House and the Senate. Sometimes they vote against raising the federal borrowing limit. and usually that's posturing. Like Barack Obama did that when he was a senator once, and he really got dinged for that when he was president, and suddenly he had to deal with we might default in 2011. And he actually said, I took the wrong vote when I voted against doing that. That's just posturing. I don't understand why Republicans think they have so much to gain from doing this. They are trying to make the point that the reason we're in this pickle, the reason that we have so much federal debt and we have to keep borrowing more on top of more on top of more, is that the Democrats keep passing all these spending bills. But it's equally true that Republicans keep passing tax cuts that just add to the deficit, and they did that in 2017. That was, at the time, $1.5 trillion in new debt added to the national debt over a decade. I think the tally is now higher than that. So both parties do it, and they spend and cut taxes with abandon, and they don't care until these arbitrary deadlines come up and we have to raise the borrowing limit. I think we should just get rid of the borrowing limit. Congress could repeal this. This is not in the Constitution. Congress could just repeal it. That would be the sensible thing to do, because this is imposing no fiscal discipline whatsoever.
Yeah.
The debt situation just keeps getting worse, even though we have this rule, in fact. But here we are at the circus yet again.
Hey, I agree. I have a feeling we're certainly not at the end of this. Could potentially kick the can down the road and could be talking about this again some months from now.
Yep.
All right. Rick Newman, thank you, as usual.
See ya.